There was a time when $300 jeans with giant logos weren't just accepted, they were the dream. True Religion turned denim into a status symbol, selling a loud, flashy fantasy that took over malls, music videos, and red carpets. For a few years, it worked. Everyone wanted a pair. But fashion doesn't stand still. As style shifted toward sneakers, athleisure, and subtlety, True Religion kept clinging to what had once made it cool. The louder it got, the faster the culture moved on. And what followed wasn't just decline. It was one of the most dramatic collapses in American fashion. 2 bankruptcies, mass store closures, a name that went from everywhere to almost nowhere. So what happens when a brand built on excess loses the culture that made it powerful? And now that True Religion is planning a comeback, can a name that fell this far ever really find its place again? True Religion didn't just sell jeans, it sold the fantasy of being seen. In the early 2000s, when premium denim was exploding, this was the brand that turned stitching and logos into status symbols. For a few years, it felt like you couldn't walk through a mall, open a fashion magazine, or watch a music video without spotting those oversized horseshoe logos or thick seams running down the side of someone's $300 jeans. Founded in 2002 by Jeff Lubell and Kim Gold, True Religion launched at the perfect moment. The market was ready for something louder, bolder, and pricier. Lubell didn't want to compete with mass-market denim. He wanted to create the jeans that would make people stop and look, and he succeeded. With exaggerated stitching, chunky hardware, and prices that signaled luxury, True Religion offered denim that wasn't just about fit. It was about making a statement. And the way they built hype? Smart. From the start, True Religion understood the power of celebrity and media. They ceded jeans to stylists and stars, getting the brand onto the legs of everyone from Madonna to Britney Spears to the cast of Desperate Housewives. Paparazzi photos did the marketing for them. Every shot of a celebrity in True Religion added to the brand's mystique. The jeans became shorthand for Hollywood cool. But the magic wasn't limited to the US. Almost immediately, True Religion went global. Lubell set up licensing and distribution deals in places like Japan, Italy, Germany, and Australia. By 2005, international sales made up a huge chunk of the business. The brand's appeal crossed borders because, at its heart, True Religion was selling something universal, the promise of standing out. Their retail strategy added to the fantasy. When True Religion opened its first stores, small, carefully designed boutiques, they didn't feel like ordinary denim shops. The jeans were displayed like luxury goods, the spaces polished and exclusive. Shoppers weren't just buying jeans, they were buying into the lifestyle. And let's not forget the numbers. By 2005, True Religion was pulling in over $100 million in sales. By 2007, that number had tripled. The company went public, its market cap soared, and the brand expanded into t-shirts, hoodies, outerwear, all stamped with the same loud identity that made its denim famous. For a moment, True Religion felt untouchable. The jeans weren't just clothes. They were part of the 2000s cultural landscape, stitched into the fantasy of fame, flash, and wealth that defined the era. But as with so many brands that burn fast and bright, the warning signs weren't far behind. And these signs might have been easy to ignore at first. Sales were still strong, the stores were still busy, and the celebrity endorsements kept coming. But beneath the surface, something had changed. Shoppers weren't looking to flash their wealth the same way anymore. The loud, logo-heavy look that had made True Religion famous was starting to lose its shine. Athleisure wasn't just a passing trend. It was becoming a way of life. Sneakers, leggings, and softer, stretchier fabrics were taking over closets, offering comfort and versatility that stiff, heavy denim couldn't match. And while competitors like Levi's were adding stretch, experimenting with sustainable materials, and updating fits, True Religion stayed married to its thick seams and bold embroidery, as if the shift wasn't happening. It wasn't just about the product either. True Religion's marketing, once driven by celebrity sightings and that sense of effortless cool, started to feel dated. As social media began reshaping how brands connected with consumers, True Religion seemed slow to join the conversation. Levi's was telling stories about craftsmanship and sustainability. Diesel was reinventing itself with edgy campaigns and humor that resonated with younger shoppers. But True Religion? It largely kept quiet, relying on its old playbook while the world moved on. Inside the company, the pressure was becoming impossible to ignore. Lubell had built True Religion on instinct, and for years, that instinct had been right. But now, his vision seemed increasingly out of sync with what the market wanted. Investors and board members were pushing for a shift. They saw the writing on the wall. They wanted the brand to rethink its pricing, update its designs, and take digital seriously. But Lubell wasn't ready to abandon the formula that had made True Religion a success. That clash became a defining feature of these years. What the company needed was bold reinvention. What it got was hesitation and internal friction. The boardroom battles mirrored the bigger fight playing out in the market, between a brand clinging to the past and a culture that had already moved on. Meanwhile, consumer behavior was changing in other ways too. Fast fashion made it easy for shoppers to chase trends without spending hundreds of dollars on a single pair of jeans. And the rise of resale culture meant younger shoppers were starting to question why they should pay full price when secondhand options were cheaper and often cooler. Then there was the digital gap. While others were investing in e-commerce and figuring out how to tell stories online, True Religion stayed focused on its stores, betting on malls and boutiques even as foot traffic declined and shopping habits changed. The stores became more of a burden than an asset, expensive to operate, harder to justify, and no longer central to how people shopped. By 2012, the tensions at the top came to a head. Lubell's contract wasn't renewed. The founder who had shaped True Religion's rise was out, and the brand, for all its past success, was heading into uncertain territory without him. The edge that had once made True Religion so powerful was slipping fast. And it's hard not to wonder, was this the moment where things might have been saved? If only they'd had the courage to let go of the past. By the time Jeff Lubell walked away, True Religion was no longer in control of its story. In 2013, private equity firm Towerbrook Capital Partners acquired the brand for over $800 million, a figure that spoke more to past glory than future promise. The plan was simple on paper: clean up the balance sheet, steady the business, and modernize the brand. But in practice, Towerbrook had bought into a brand that didn't know what it wanted to be anymore. The years that followed were marked by cautious, incremental moves at a moment when the market demanded bold change. True Religion continued to rely on its network of physical stores, even opening new locations, at a time when shoppers were shifting decisively toward online retail. The stores were expensive to operate, and many were in malls that were seeing declining foot traffic. What was meant to be a growth strategy ended up deepening the financial hole. At the same time, the brand's product line didn't keep pace with competitors. While Levi's leaned into fit innovation, sustainable fabrics, and digital customization, and while fast fashion chains flooded the market with affordable trends, True Religion kept its prices high and its styles stuck in the past. Even when it introduced joggers and more casual pieces, it felt like a brand playing catch-up, not one leading the conversation. Behind the scenes, private equity priorities didn't always align with what True Religion needed to turn around. Cost-cutting became a focus, but the brand's deeper issues, its outdated image, its failure to connect with a younger consumer, remained unsolved. Leadership changes came and went, but no one seemed able to define a future that could stick. By 2017, the inevitable happened. The company filed for bankruptcy, closing dozens of stores and shedding hundreds of millions in debt. It emerged leaner, with a tighter retail footprint and a mandate to change. But those promises quickly ran up against reality. Efforts to reboot the brand, new campaigns, collaborations, product tweaks, failed to reignite enthusiasm. And then came 2020. The pandemic hit retail hard across the board, but for a brand already weakened by years of missteps, it was catastrophic. Store closures during lockdowns choked revenue. The fragile gains made after the first bankruptcy evaporated. True Religion filed for bankruptcy a second time that April, slashing its store count and fighting to stay afloat in a market that had largely moved on. As we maybe all expected, because fashion loves a comeback, True Religion didn't disappear quietly. After the second bankruptcy, the brand did what so many doubted it could. It pulled itself together and started working on a return. But this time, it wasn't about throwing open more stores or hoping logos would sell themselves. The old playbook was done. If True Religion wanted to survive, it had to do what it had resisted for years. Actually change. And so it did. Slowly at first, but then with more purpose. Digital finally became the core of the business. E-commerce, once treated as an afterthought, is now where nearly half of True Religion's sales happen. They've built up loyalty programs, focused on mobile shopping, and started meeting customers where they actually are, on their phones. And for the first time in years, sales started growing again, with online business jumping over 35% in 2023 alone. Marketing? That got a reset, too. No more resting on the faded memory of being cool. Instead, the brand leaned hard into hip-hop, streetwear, and the communities that gave it life the first time around. New partnerships with artists like Chief Keef, campaigns featuring Megan Thee Stallion, and influencer collabs have all helped to get the name back into conversation, especially with younger shoppers scrolling TikTok, Instagram, and Depop, where the brand's throwback styles are finding a new audience. And of course, there's Y2K nostalgia, because if there's one thing fashion loves, it's a revival. Low-rise jeans, giant logos, baggy silhouettes. What once felt dated is now getting double taps on social media. Vintage pairs are reselling online, True Religion's own reissues are moving units, and the brand's collaborations with names like Urban Outfitters are creating buzz. But here's the thing. And this is where even fans seem to split. If you scroll through social posts and comment sections, you'll see the divide. Some people are genuinely excited. Glad to see TR back, I need a pair like the ones I had in high school. Others, not so sure. Are we really doing this again? The risk is clear. Y2K nostalgia is fun, but it's not forever. The question True Religion faces now is bigger than any single campaign or collab. Can they take that short-term buzz and turn it into long-term relevance? Can they convince a new generation that their jeans are worth the price? Not just for the logo, but because the brand means something again? Their new investors are betting big. With fresh capital, more disciplined operations, and a clearer digital strategy, the company is targeting $450 million in sales and talking, once again, about billion-dollar ambitions. But denim is a tough game. Competition is everywhere. From Levi's to fast fashion to brands that didn't have to fall as far as True Religion did to stay relevant. So far, the comeback is in motion. But whether it sticks, whether True Religion can really matter again, True Religion's rise, fall, and fight for relevance says so much about how fast fashion changes and how hard it is to win back what's been lost. But I'd love to know, do you think this brand still has a future? Or is it just living off nostalgia? Let me know your thoughts or your memories of True Religion in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.